head coaching jobs have opened up. Questions surrounded Broncos head coach Vance Joseph, but he will keep his job. Meanwhile, the 12-team playoff bracket has been set. Wild card weekend. Our matchups look like this. Starts Sunday with Titans and Chiefs. That game on ESPN. The Falcons at the Rams. And then on Sunday, the Bills are back when they travel to Jacksonville. The Panthers will be in New Orleans. Happy New Year, everybody. So glad you could ride along with us as the NFL coaching carousel goes round and round. Welcome to 2018. I'm Wendy Nix with Adam Schefter, Ryan Clark, and Louis Riddick. We will start in Indianapolis. The Colts have parted ways with Chuck Pagano after 6 seasons. The team won 11 games in each of Pagano's first 3 years. They've gone just 20-28 over the last 3. So then we head out west. The Raiders fired Jack Del Rio. This came after Sunday's 20-point loss to the Chargers. It ends his 3-year tenure. Firing comes after Del Rio signed a 4-year extension in the offseason. And then there's the Lions. They say goodbye to Jim Caldwell, who had 3 winning seasons in 4 years in the Motor City. The Lions are coming off back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 3 straight from 1993 to 1995. And finally, not a surprise, the Bears will not be bringing back John Fox. He had at least double-digit loss totals in all 3 years in Chicago. He's the first Bears coach to lose 10 or more games in 3 consecutive seasons. In Denver, Broncos head coach Vance Joseph has been informed he will return to Denver as the team's head coach next season. President of Football Operations and GM John Elway made the announcement official. And Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians leaves on his terms. He has retired, including the postseason. Arians' 50 wins with the Cardinals are the most by a head coach in franchise history. He was emotional when making that announcement today. And so that's where we are. And it's just Monday afternoon, but it tends to happen like this once that ball starts rolling. Adam, what more are we likely to expect?
I think the one team that there's a question about right now is Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis. And I think his plan had been to leave, but he had discussions today with Mike Brown. And as Marvin Lewis himself said, it's a complicated situation. It's not just a case of him and Mike Brown sitting down to see if they can figure this out. Again, his contract is up. The contracts of the assistant coaches are up. There's a lot of uncertainty, and there's some frustration, I think, with the way things have been done there in the past, and they're trying to see if they can figure out a way to bridge some of these differences and make it work. Again, I think the thinking has been that he'd be leaving, but we are one day in. There's not going to be a decision today. They're going to push it up to tomorrow. Maybe they could figure out something. I don't know about that, but they're trying.
Marvin Lewis did speak to the media today and obviously was asked about it and said, which apparently is the truth, we don't know, and we'll wait and have a decision tomorrow. It was interesting. Jack Del Rio, as I mentioned, out in Oakland. All the teams make the announcement in a variety of different ways. Here's how we officially heard the news that Del Rio would not be returning.
I spoke with Mark Davis after the game, and Mark let me know that he's not going to be bringing me back. And so he told me, loved me and appreciated all that I did to kind of get this program going in the right direction, but that he felt the need to change. I told him how much I appreciated the opportunity he gave me, and I mean that. Very grateful. My childhood team, but it's a results business. I understand that.
And certainly he does, but it doesn't make it any easier. These are people we're talking about. It's not often the head coach actually makes the announcement, Adam, himself.
Well, a couple things. He handled himself great. That was really amazing to learn your fate right after the game, to come in to face reporters and to deliver an impromptu press conference just like that where you admit that you've been fired and that it hurts you and you salute the team. Props to Jack Del Rio for the way he handled it. Now, let me say this also. You don't make that move with Jack Del Rio unless you know that you can get John Gruden. So John Gruden is expected to be the next head coach of the Oakland Raiders. They'll interview candidates, and they'll go through the process, and they'll comply with the Rooney Rule. But the fact of the matter is, if John Gruden did not wind up in Oakland now, it would be an upset because, again, you don't make that move unless you have somebody in mind.
Yeah. See, I don't understand this level of professionalism. I just don't. What Jack Del Rio was able to do after being fired, walking off the field, you heard him say it's his childhood team. So this was a dream for this man to coach this team. He's been there 3 years. He got the program, or he got the team organization moving in the right direction. There was a setback this year, but that was also part of the regression of their quarterback, part of the regression of their offensive line. And to learn about your fate in such a way that I feel is unprofessional. It may be something that is a normal practice in the league, but that is very difficult. So for him to come in and, like Adam said, deliver the news, we usually wait for Shefty to post these things on Twitter first. Shefty didn't even get that opportunity because Jack Del Rio had to deliver this news, and I am 100% on board with Adam. You have to know that Jon Gruden is coming to coach this team to make this decision. This team wasn't in a situation where it couldn't be fixed or where Jack Del Rio, if given another year, couldn't get the team going in the right direction and make them a playoff team.
Clearly, Lewis, this was a situation where you had a head coach who was doing all right. You found somebody you wanted more. Sure.
You look, the NFL is always about always being a step ahead, 2 steps ahead. And everyone knows that off the official record, off the official ledger, things are always happening. So as emotional as Jack was, and trust me, I mean, I get it. Look, Ryan, I'm totally with you. Look, the game is coached and played by human beings who actually have a lot invested emotionally. It's not just always about, oh, we're on to next week, or, we're just taking it day by day and all that stuff. Look, behind closed doors, there's some real emotion that goes into this. There's a lot of investment that goes into this. So what you saw yesterday was Jack letting some of that out, and that's real and that's great. But look, there's no question that they have been planning ahead with this. There's no question that they have a different outset, or rather a different outlook in terms of what they want this organization to look like, what they think John could potentially bring to this team from a marketing standpoint, from a fan base standpoint. They're going to be making a big move. There's a lot of things that have been going on, I'm sure, behind the scenes to set up this move. And I'm sure Jack wasn't, although the timing caught him off guard, I'm sure he wasn't caught off guard.
Well, he heard the speculation like the rest of us did, I'm sure. Even so, when it happens, I think in real time, that's a difficult proposition to step in front of people who want to talk
how much
about.
that move played a part in it as well, though.
Yeah,
going to Las Vegas, wanting to have some type of steam built up when you're making that move, some excitement around the team. And I think they're looking at it like, yeah, this season was okay, but we need to make a splash. We need to do something that makes us pretty to look at. And I think Jon Gruden, being your head coach, does that.
Listen, we followed the story more night on Saturday, and you know it's right, and you know it's true, and you know something's going on. But even when Jack Del Rio steps to that podium and announces that he's been let go, it still takes your breath away.
No doubt.
Because it's still surreal at that moment. And let's also keep in mind that Jon Gruden's been the great white whale for Mark Davis. He's been trying to land this whale for a long time. This isn't the first time that he's made a run at him. And I think he's a guy that he would have hired any single year if he could. The difference this year is that Jon Gruden is more prepared and more ready to go back into coaching than he's been in any other year in the past when any other team has approached him. He's ready to go back into the NFL. He's been preparing to go back into the NFL. And because of that, these two sides are able to get together. The Raiders had some of the ingredients that it would take to lure him back to the league, a young quarterback he believes in, and he'll be able to not have to declare taxes once they go to Nevada and they're the Las Vegas.
Well, that never hurt anybody, and by all accounts, he will be back on the sidelines, Jon Gruden, next season. Bruce Arians was also emotional when making his announcement, different reasons, of course. He retired, and here's what he had to say when he stepped down as the coach of the Cardinals.
We built this program on 3 words: trust, loyalty, and respect. I told our team last night I was done. I'm retiring. Excuse me. Told you before, there would be reasons. Family is a big one, and I will miss the game.
Well, first of all, let me just say that Bruce Arians is a tremendous person, a great coach, but an even better person. And, Lewis, you talked about the emotion that we see behind the scenes, and there's a snapshot. This is a lifestyle. It's more than just a job or a profession. These guys give everything they have, and that's a big decision to step down and change your life's course. Wendy,
you know, the time commitment that is required, and some people would say it's not required, but look, it is required to be a top-flight coach in the NFL, to be a top-flight administrator, top-flight front office guy, top-flight scout, personnel director. Look, you live your life in the dark, away from your family, a large portion of the year, especially from August until January. You are going away from your home, leaving your family when it's dark, if you see them Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And when you come home, your kids are in the bed, your significant other is asleep, and you maybe lay down in your bed 3-4 hours, and you get up and you go again, and you go again, and you go again, and again, and again. And the toll it takes on people emotionally and physically, and the kind of investment that is required in order for you to do it at the highest level, I mean, you see all that come out when you know your time is over, whether it's by choice or someone takes it away from you. And I'm telling you what, look, I've seen these emotions before. It's actually I don't want to say it's comforting, but it's just very revealing to see these guys actually show just how much they love the game. Because at the highest levels of football, you think that people are just mercenaries and they play to be on TV and get their names on the front of programs and to make the money. No, they coach this game and they play this game because it's a lifestyle, like you said, and it's a choice. And it's a choice that comes with great sacrifice. And Bruce decided it wasn't, I don't want to make that sacrifice anymore. So hats off to him.
So he's got a lot of good hats, too. So.
Yeah,
hats off to
amazing
Bruce Arians. He does.
Yeah, Bruce was, BA was the offensive coordinator when I first got to Pittsburgh. And he's a guy that loves the game, but he also loved the people around the game. He and Ben Roethlisberger are still close. They still golf in the offseason. And Lewis talked about the time you spend away from your family. This game becomes your family. The people that you're around day in and day out, the people that you work with day in and day out, whether it's players, other coaches, administrators. And so when you become a part of this game, it becomes a part of you. And B.A. was a player. He's a guy that's coached in college. He's been an assistant coach, now a head coach. You don't come to the decision to stop doing that, to stop doing what has been your life for his whole adult career, his whole adult life, easily. That's not an easy decision to make. And you saw that emotion. And Lewis said it's reassuring to see. It's refreshing to me that the public gets to know what goes into being a part of this game.
We see so many cliched, stale press conferences. Yeah. So when you see these men showing the type of emotion that Jack Del Rio did, that Bruce Arians did, it resonates. And that's exactly what they did. You don't see that type of emotion ordinarily on the Monday after the season when coaches are fired.
Yeah.
This was rare to see guys like that.
Inevitably, though, the game goes on. We know that. Yeah. Tomorrow is Tuesday, and teams will start preparing. So what's the best job? What pieces are in place out there that would make you want to take a head coaching job, Lewis? What team?
Well, I think Oakland obviously is very attractive because if you look at it and just look at it objectively, look, they have a quarterback who did regress this year, and there's a number of different reasons as to why. And I think John is one of the being hired there potentially is one of the fixes for those reasons why he regressed. The offensive line has a lot invested in it, especially at the center and the guard positions. They need to fortify the tackle positions, but they're good there. They have wide receivers that right now need to step up and be more consistent. There's no question about it. They have a premier pass rusher that they have to take care of contractually. They need to solidify the linebacker position, and they better get some corners. But they have a lot in place that can be helped through free agency and through the draft. A team that's going to Vegas, a new stadium, rabid fan base. There's a lot to like about that job in particular.
Listen, you started with Young and quarterback, which is usually where you start.
It
starts and ends there when you're talking about coaching
this
jobs.
This quarterback isn't as young, but the Detroit Lions, you have Matthew Stafford, who's been there, who's a guy that's carried this team on his back for many years. You have an opportunistic defense where you have Slay and you have Glover Quinn, and you also have some pass rushers on the defensive line that can get after the quarterback. This is the team that you would like to coach because you understand getting a running game is paramount. You know what you can go out and do in free agency or do in the draft, whether it be up front or in the backfield. This is a team that you can win with. This is a team that has been competitive. I think very much like the Oakland Raiders, just wanted to go in a different direction, wanted to get something new in the building. The Detroit Lions is the job I would take.
You know what's interesting as I was watching that? They've replaced Calvin Johnson. They never replaced Barry Sanders.
Yeah,
when you think about it in those regards. To me, the job right now that is the most appealing is Indianapolis because you have Andrew Luck. And I know he's coming off the shoulder injury, but I think the organization is confident that he's going to be okay. And if Andrew Luck is okay, you're still talking about the #1 overall pick in the draft, a guy that once was the highest paid player in the game, a title that now belongs to Matthew Stafford, and a guy that is enormously talented. And if you bring in an offensive-minded coach, and they reached out to Josh McDaniels today, then that would tell you that he might be able to bring out the most of Andrew Luck's abilities. You work with a GM, Chris Ballard, who knows personnel. And so, to me, Indianapolis becomes
this job
very
scares
appealing.
me.
Well, let's talk about the flip side of this equation. What are the challenges?
Yeah, this job scares me with Andrew Luck.
Because we don't know.
Yeah, this is a guy that we don't know when he's going to come back. We don't know what he will be when he comes back. And if you look at this team from a roster standpoint, I think this roster is depleted. There are not a lot of players on this team that I look at like this is a guy going forward that can be a linchpin or that can be a pillar in this locker room and on this team for the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm not a guy that necessarily wants to coach under Jim Irsay. This organization that was once with Peyton Manning, the standard in the AFC, along with the New England Patriots, that you thought that every year they had an opportunity to win it. He's a guy that now leaks information from the locker room, that wants to lead in almost a Jerry Jones type of way without the Jerry Jones, quote-unquote, control that he has. And this really makes me nervous. If I'm going to take this job, will this organization be run in a way that allows me to be successful, especially with a quarterback that I don't know who he will be when he comes back?
Yeah. Lewis, do you have concerns about Andrew Luck's health? I guess we all have concerns because there's questions.
Sure, there's just a lot of unknown, and there's just so many questions that haven't been answered. I don't even know if Andrew knows. I don't know if the Colts know. And, you know, going beyond that, look, if there's 5 positions I'm always looking at, and I've talked about it over and over again. Do they have a quarterback? Well, maybe they do. They have one if he's healthy. Do they have a premier pass rusher? Do they have a #1 corner? Do they have a solid set of tackles? Do they have a premier #1 outside lane wide receiver? Do they have a great safety, a middle linebacker? All those things. Well, right now, there's a lot of questions right there. Those positions that I just named. There's question. So Chris has a lot of work still to do. If you're really looking at, you know, and you're willing to take on the challenge of building the football team with uncertainty surrounding the quarterback position, and you're going to be given the time to do it, hey, look, if Andrew's fine, then you're way ahead of the game. But there's still a lot to do with the rest of the roster, no question about it.
I think the operative word there is if, and that's...
Yeah, and still there's a lot to do with the rest of the roster. So there you have it.
I'll give you one other team talking to the Bears, just because I'll bet you there's a coach out there who thinks they could do for Mitchell Trubisky what Sean McVay did for Jared Goff. And if they can do that...
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's a far-fetched thing at all. I think that's a football team, without a doubt, that needs to hit on some draft picks and make the right investments. Particularly right there.
Well,
they got to get some playmakers. They don't have it.
That thanks to Jared Goff and some of these young quarterbacks, the window for success now, you don't have a lot of time.
He's been saying that all year. You don't get a lot of time.
As it should.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the way it goes.
Well, speaking of time, the time has come for the Buffalo Bills. The 17-year playoff drought has come to an end. Thank you, Cincinnati Bengals. You will not have to wait that long for your playoff overreactions. They are on deck and headed your way. And later on NFL Live, from wardrobe malfunctions to big man touchdowns, the best and worst of Week 17 Sunday standouts. Stick around.
Take home 6 of our famous yeast rolls for free at Golden Corral. Hurry in for beef brisket, ribs, and more. 7 nights a week, just $13.99. And take home 6 yeast rolls for free. Yeah, baby. Golden Corral. Your choice rules.
Look with
pocket throw.
Yeah.
Caught my boy.
Get in.
The 15.
Get in.
The 10.
Yeah.
The 5.
And disbelief has shrouded the stadium.
Tyler Boyd on 4th and 12. It's a 49-yard touchdown.
A lot of happy guys in that locker room. A lot of emotions. Running pretty well. We're very grateful for this opportunity. It's a well-earned opportunity.
Listen, it was cold last night. It did not stop those folks from meeting that plane. Here's the AFC wildcard slate this weekend. It's the Tennessee Titans. They'll face the Chiefs on the road in Kansas City. The Chiefs have lost 5 straight home playoff games. That is the longest streak in NFL history. And then the Bills clinched their first playoff berth since 1999. They will face the Jags, who are hosting their first playoff game since the 1999 AFC Championship game. And there's no better place to start with our Monday staple, Overreaction Monday. We'll start with the Buffalo Bills, and here it is. The statement: the Bills are the biggest surprise team in the playoffs. Overreaction? Not an overreaction.
It's not an overreaction, simply because of how they got in.
We didn't know.
Look, I'm not going to cast any judgment on the Buffalo Bills as a football team, because, look, this is a team that plays the game in such a way that really bodes well for playoff-type football. They can run the ball. They are efficient enough in the passing game, and they'll play good defense when they need to, and they can turn the ball over. They got 2 of the best intercepting safeties in the NFL, and maybe a Rookie of the Year candidate in Tre'Davious White at corner. But how they got in, how the Ravens let them in, how they let them in on that.
So it wasn't Buffalo, it was the Ravens.
It doesn't matter why they're
really
the biggest
about
surprise.
Buffalo. Okay, it's not about Buffalo. My brother played for Buffalo. I've been a Buffalo fan ever since I was a kid.
And you can't but be happy for the Bills
absolutely,
fans.
But the Ravens, come on, 4th and 12. When you watch that play and you watch how they let Tyler Boyd score, who's a Pitt Panther, by the way.
Yes.
It is amazing that it happened. I mean, it's heartbreaking to watch. It's literally heartbreaking to watch as a former defensive back, knowing that they gave up that play the way they did.
Lewis, the Rams in the playoffs?
That's why it's an overreaction, Adam. Get him. Get him, Lou. Get him, Adam.
What does that have to do with Buffalo?
Get him, Adam.
Well, the question is, are the Bills the biggest surprise
That's
team
where
in
I'm
the
going.
playoffs?
Yeah, it's a surprise because
your Rams team.
It's a surprise because they shouldn't be in there because the Ravens should be in there.
He's attacking it from a different angle.
Oh, I know what he's trying.
Let Adam get it from a different.
So you say it's an overreaction?
Well, just when the season started,
yes.
Nobody outside of Louis Critic was picking the Rams to get to the playoffs.
Critic, the critic.
You guys are just pumping him up. He just gets to be happy he's right. Like,
so to me, I win anyway.
I know, you win either way. I don't know how this is helping the cause.
Winning.
We're tied here.
No, I agree. It's an overreaction because when you go back to the beginning of this season, we didn't know that Jared Goff could play football. Lewis was the only one that believed it. And this is a team that has
he's in the Hall of Fame with Lewis.
Right. This is a team that has a legitimate chance to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, and no one would have thought that at the beginning of this season. And so I think the team that I expected, that I least expected to be in this position at the beginning of the season would be the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, all right. Listen, teams have streaks during the season. It's not always how you finish, but the Jaguars have really slowed down the last couple of games. That doesn't always bode well, though, for the playoffs. So I'll say this. Here's the next one. Jacksonville will be one and done in the playoffs. Adam, is that an overreaction?
That is an overreaction. Listen, this is a team that did not finish strong. They lost their last 2 games of the season. But the fact of the matter is, Jacksonville is not a team that I would want to be playing in the postseason. It's the start of a new year this weekend. And I think that with the Buffalo Bills having LaShawn McCoy hobbled with a sprained ankle, we don't know whether he'll be able to play or not. Buffalo should be enthralled with the idea of being in the postseason. It's quite an accomplishment that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane undertook and conquered, but they are going into a very tough place to play. I think Jacksonville is good enough to win the AFC despite its late season struggles.
I think you also have to be careful if you're the Bills of having that euphoria of getting to the postseason so unexpectedly carry over. Unfortunately, you got to put that behind you today.
I believe this is an overreaction because Blake Bortles is a different player when they play in Jacksonville. You watch this team go on the road against San Francisco, who was a very hot team, and then you play the Tennessee Titans, that was the team fighting for its playoff life. 3 weeks ago, we were talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars possibly hosting an AFC playoff game in a divisional round and getting the bye. And so when you look at this team and what they can do defensively, the way that they can run the football, this is a team who is built to win in the playoffs if they get good play from Blake Bortles. And when we've seen him play well, this team is really hard to beat.
I don't like this matchup for Buffalo. I think Jacksonville's defense can absolutely suffocate this offense. I mean, literally just suffocate it. Just get right up in its face and not let them get anything. And on offense, they're going to want to play smash-mouth football. They'll take it out of the hands of Blake Bortles. They won't let Blake mess this game up, and they'll get a special teams big play somewhere that'll be very, advantageous for them and kind of turn the tide in their favor if it happens to start getting real close here. So I just don't like the matchup for Buffalo. I think Jacksonville will advance.
All right, so overreaction all the way around.
Yeah.
I want to circle back. You mentioned LaShawn McCoy. Adam, let's go through some of these guys who are injured that could make a difference.
LaShawn McCoy got this sprained ankle, and, of course, they took the x-rays after the game. The x-rays, fortunately, were negative. When he went down on this play right here against the Miami Dolphins, you saw his level of frustration, anger, and concern because he slams his fist on the ground. Now, again, Sean McDermott said today there's a chance he could play Sunday. If he does play, he will not be at full strength. We'll see how that goes. And it's a situation where LaShawn McCoy will be monitored all week long. As for the Tennessee Titans, their running back, DeMarco Murray, did not play yesterday due to that injury that he suffered last week. They held him out for 1 extra week. He did suffer the MCL tear the week before. And again, this is a situation where giving him the extra week, they may be able to get him back. And I think he'll have some form of workload this week in that playoff game on Saturday.
Still to come on NFL Live, we will break in the new year, a Week 17 edition of Sunday Standouts.
Caught by Chris Moore, bobbles it, loses it, and it's intercepted by Cincinnati. Following a convoy to the 10, the 5, touchdown! Wow!
Del Rio signed a 4-year extension in the offseason. And then there's the Lions. They say goodbye to Jim Caldwell, who had 3 winning seasons in 4 years In the Motor City, the Lions are coming off back-to-back winning seasons for the first time since 3 straight from 1993 to 1995. And finally, not a surprise, the Bears will not be bringing back John Fox. He had at least double-digit loss totals in all 3 years in Chicago. He's the first Bears coach to lose 10 or more games in 3 consecutive seasons. In Denver, Broncos head coach Vance Joseph has been informed he will return to Denver as the team's head coach next season. President of Football Operations and GM John Elway made the announcement official. And Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians leaves on his terms. He has retired, including the postseason. Arians' 50 wins with the Cardinals are the most by a head coach in franchise history. He was, and obviously was asked about it and said, which apparently is the truth, we don't know, and we'll wait and have a decision tomorrow. It was interesting. Jack Del Rio, as I mentioned, out in Oakland. All the teams make the announcement in a variety of different ways. Here's how we officially heard the news that Del Rio would not be returning.
I spoke with Mark Davis after the game, and Mark let me know that he's not going to be bringing me back. And so he told me, loved me and appreciated all that I did to kind of get this program going in the right direction. But that he felt the need to change. I told him how much I appreciated the opportunity he gave me. And I mean that. Very grateful. My childhood team. But it's a results business. I understand that.
3 more head coaching jobs have opened up. Questions surrounded Broncos head coach Vance Joseph, but he will keep his job. Meanwhile, the 12-team playoff bracket has been set. Wild card weekend. Our matchups look like this. Starts Sunday with Titans and Chiefs. That game on ESPN. The Falcons at the Rams. And then on Sunday, the Bills are back when they travel to Jacksonville. The Panthers will be in New Orleans. Happy New Year, everybody. So glad you could ride along with us as the NFL coaching carousel goes round and round. Welcome to 2018. I'm Wendy Nix with Adam Schefter, Ryan Clark, and Louis Riddick. We will start in Indianapolis. The Colts have parted ways with Chuck Pagano after 6 seasons. The team won 11 games in each of Pagano's first 3 years. They've gone just 20-28 over the last 3. So then we head out west. The Raiders fired Jack Del Rio. This came after Sunday's 20-point loss to the Chargers. It ends his 3-year tenure. Firing comes emotional when making that announcement today. And so that's where we are. And it's just Monday afternoon, but it tends to happen like this once that ball starts rolling. Adam, what more are we likely to expect?
I think the one team that there's a question about right now is Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis. And I think his plan had been to leave, but he had discussions today with Mike Brown. And as Marvin Lewis himself said, it's a complicated situation. It's not just a case of him and Mike Brown sitting down to see if they can figure this out. Again, his contract is up. The contracts of the assistant coaches are up. There's a lot of uncertainty, and there's some frustration, I think, with the way things have been done there in the past. And they're trying to see if they can figure out a way to bridge some of these differences and make it work. Again, I think the thinking has been that he'd be leaving, but we are one day in. There's not going to be a decision today. They're going to push it off to tomorrow. Maybe they could figure out something. I don't know about that, but they're trying.
Marvin Lewis did speak to the media today, and certainly he does, but it doesn't make it any easier. These are people we're talking about. It's not often the head coach actually makes the announcement, Adam, himself.
Well, a couple of things. He handled himself great. That was really amazing to learn your fate right after the game, to come in to face reporters and to deliver an impromptu press conference just like that where you admit that you've been fired and that it hurts you and you salute the team. Props to Jack Del Rio for the way he handled it. Now, let me say this also. You don't make that move with Jack Del Rio unless you know that you can get John Gruden. So John Gruden is expected to be the next head coach of the Oakland Raiders. They'll interview candidates and they'll go through the process and they'll comply with the Rooney Rule. But the fact of the matter is, if John Gruden did not wind up in Oakland now, it would be an upset because, again, you don't make that move unless you have somebody in mind.
Yeah. See, I don't understand this level of professionalism. I just don't. What Jack Del Rio was able to do